Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome back this evening to our SAPI IP Business Talks. Today we have a topic which we so far, to my understanding, we did not touch. We talk about technology transfer and some associated topics with it, like how to behave, how SMEs behave in that era, and also some open source issues. I'm happy to have my guests today. First of all, we have our invited guest, Daniel Vasconcelos. I'm very happy that he is here. And then we have in the chat the accredited guests, Magda Voltolini, Public Affairs Director from Lensify, a French tech transfer institution. We have David Hurtado here, founder and CEO of Lensi Arte. So he was one of my guests in a former evening. And today we have also Professor Gilberto Ribeiro at the university. So, and I'm not want to say something wrong. It's the Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais. Okay, so you see my Spanish is not that well. So I'm very happy that we are together and everybody is invited. Give us your comments, your ideas, your questions in the chat, and I will pick that up and discuss it with Daniel. So, and now we go back to our invited guest. Daniel, thank you very much for being here. Please explain us a little bit about your background, especially, I'm always saying no 14-year-old boy is waking up in the morning and saying, okay, I want to go into the IP field, or I want to become a licensing manager or whatever. So what we are doing here is quite specific, sometimes even difficult to explain. So it would be great. Tell us a little bit about your background, about your profession, and about your passion when it comes to IP and technology transfer.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Wurzer, and good evening to all this very interesting community that I'm honored to be part of. And yes, it is my nightmare because my parents, my sister, nobody knows what I'm doing. My grandmother thinks that I'm still at the faculty, so he is not a very good student. But well, I started with a degree and master in bioengineering. Okay, at the end, I was very interested in to develop a new medical device. So I got passionate about implantable medical devices through some extra time that I spent at lab. So I decided to pursue a PhD in that field, also in Porto, and I spent some time in Heidelberg, in Germany. And in the middle of the process, I figure out that my results are very interesting. So I did some animal studies, the materials works perfectly, and I decided, okay, well, maybe I can start a company, do a project who can help me with that. And at the institution, there is just one person that told me, okay, go into the Google patents, look for a similar patent, adapt to yours, and file a provisional filing in Portugal that is very cheap, 10 euros, that is enough, and we will see in the future. And then all the things go wrong because I have no support to understand the report from the National IP Office. There is no idea about the roadmap, investors, business model. I don't know anything, so the idea was that. And I decided that at the end of my PhD, I want to avoid that this happen again. And there was someone that told me IP is the starting point, and then all the rest around technology transfer will come. And so at the end of my PhD, I got an opportunity in the other side of the road that was in ESCTech, an R&D institution in Porto, so nearby Galiza from Tobias. We are still in the same geography. That is an R&D institution on ICT. So we do a lot of software, and that helps me a lot at learning the basics and keep evolving as a tech transfer professional. So I had the luck to have very interesting, very helpful colleagues, okay, that helped me to grow. And now I'm the head of the TLO several years apart. For 4 years apart, I'm now the head.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let's start a little bit about the situation of a licensing of a tech transfer department in a university. So you are a kind of third party, okay? To a certain extent, some technology transfer offices are seen from the researchers as seen as a fifth wheel, which is simply not necessary or disturbing or whatever. And I mean, the logic of tech transfer offices is now around the globe, and from politics, it is seen as quite important. Not every university is supporting that really. So sometimes you are quite lonely in a tech transfer office. So what would you say when you have a message to the researchers? What would you say are the most important messages that they can understand why it is beneficial for them to cooperate with tech transfer offices?
Well, it is a challenge. So I think that we have to understand that for the vast majority of them, we are their third priority. So if we think about the third mission, the first mission to the most part of them is to lecture. The second one is to do R&D, and then comes the bureaucratic guys that are talking about patents and other things. Okay, so we have to really start to explain them why they should care about IP and what benefits that can arise. And the benefits can start by very general benefits. So the first one is to secure future opportunities. So new projects with the companies, new collaborations around the globe. And they understand that. They like that because they are doing that in very fundamental scientific projects, collaborate with universities at US and China, and they understand that maybe companies want to secure the assets with some kind of legal tools that we know that are the IPRs. Then researchers also like reputation, okay, and they also like money because they fight a lot to secure the money for their research team. Yeah. And then we can offer them that. Okay, and now we can return to the question, how can we do that to them? I believe that here Technology Transfer Office play a key role, okay, and there are many associations. I would like to highlight ASTP in Europe, Autumn in North America, that help us at fight this loneliness, okay? So many times these offices are very small, few people, no critical mass, no cases, very difficult to improve, but using this kind of networks, connecting people, it is very useful to change best practices and help us to grow and to do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, you're offering a network, you're offering a broad network of other perspectives in the field. I mean, this is what David told me some weeks ago when he was invited here for Latin America, and what he said between Europe and Latin America, that it is so helpful what he's doing with his licenciata, that he brings people together which even didn't know that both parties exist. And here what you bring is a completely different perspective on this research field for the researchers, right?
Yes, right. Yeah. For researchers, we look at them as customers. Okay, we are applying a very like market driven, business driven approach to TTOs. because we have to fight some academic approach of TT, technology transfer, sorry for the slang, that is, okay, I need a patent to my CV, so file it for me, and we see no value with that. So how can...
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm curious here because I studied physics and microbiology very long ago. I don't want to speak about that, how long it was, but but in my times, for a physicist, it was simply not really relevant to think about a patent. So we had, so in that time in Germany we did not have any technology transfer offices de facto. So everybody who knows the legal situation in Germany can now count how old I am. But we had that. We didn't have that. And is it in the meantime so that at least having one patent has a certain credibility in the CV of a researcher in engineering, natural science, and in these fields? Is that a fact?
Yes, it's that a fact. So for all the job positions, at least at the University of Porto, intellectual property is one of the criteria. Then many of the candidates have a zero there, but at least there is a pressure to try and to think about that. Other incentive is that I have mixed feelings about it. It is when you introduce innovation or IP-based KPIs. So I have a project and you need to file or apply an European patent application. Okay, that is good because it's trained, it creates opportunity to protect, but when this researcher is pressured to have a European patent, you will file a patent, okay, no matter if it is good or not, and that is to me it has a negative impact in the culture. Okay, it is not good. It is in the short term, it is okay, but for mid long term, it is not that good.
This
No
is
value.
what we see in China, that you get that funding, that the companies should file patents, and then we have this flood of patents. At the end, excuse me, all the patent attorneys, I'm sorry for that, to say that, but it's a funding for patent attorneys at the end, so that we just generate more patents. I mean, I think there should be an incentive, but not just funding filing patents. I think that is not the right direction we should go. And it's interesting that you say the same thing from Portugal and from an TTO.
Yeah, we agree. We try to do the best we can, so to have a fit between the invention and the market, and try to help also the patent attorney. So here, TTO should be very present, be visible and active to try to engage people. Okay, because it is to researchers, you are I would say the Sherpa, the one that will guide them to these new worlds. Okay, and so they email you, they phone you to your personal number. Oh, look, I have a new idea. I just trust in you. So, and we should be prepared to that. It is a contact sport to be in technology transfer, I think. One of the things that I would like to highlight is to have an IP policy in place, disclose it, and have a very clear communication with your researchers, because there are a lot of myths also around open source about software patents. Because for the most part of them, they have no experience, and to them just patents account. And we know that IP strategies and IP export is not just about patents.
I mean, one aspect which David now put in the chat is that he says, and I think that's a very interesting perspective, that he says all these discussions about business models, IP matters, that helps to the researchers at the end, that the society can benefit from their knowledge. And I think that's a very interesting perspective, that we say, as long as it is just the ivory tower, the danger is high that the society benefits not that much. So in the IP system, we call that dissemination. Make sure that there is something which is really changing the world, and not just putting so stacking papers and yeah, don't not coming out of the ivory tower. Is that an argument which you're using too?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, show researchers the big picture, and exactly that, the societal impact of their activities, because papers and conferences do not save lives. Okay, and we try to challenge them to do a step further, to help us at engaging with the industrial partner that will do the development of the product or the services that then will benefit the society, their families,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, and
That is.
also it gives you a credibility. Let's say when you so I had a professor in that time who worked on a jet engine, and
Mhm.
again when he was giving lectures, he gave us examples from this real life jet engine project, and yeah, it creates a certain credibility when somebody is talking about something real, a product which is out there, which has to work. I mean, that's a certain perspective.
Yeah. Yes, and there is a very recent, not last year, report from the European Commission highlighting exactly that. So focus on ultimate goals on societal impact, jobs creation, revenues that ensure the sustainability of R&D, public R&D. Don't stuck in intermediary KPIs like patent application, blah blah blah
Yeah,
blah, blah, because that they have no value per se,
yeah,
but the value, it depends on what you can do with them.
yeah, and it has a certain tendency to misuse the incentivation in
Exactly.
the wrong direction. Incentives in the wrong direction. So, Daniel, I would like to switch to the other side of technology transfer.
Mhm.
So, of course, we have the big corporates here, which have own offices for open departments, for open source, for technology licensing, for everything. But the majority of the companies in the European Union are SMEs, and
Mhm.
they have definitely not that kind of resources. And to a certain extent, I mean, I can say that with a personal experience, there is a certain level of the not invented here syndrome. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that these companies have the attitude in terms of, we know the market, we know the product, we yeah, it's our daily life what we are doing here, and now you come from outside and telling me that you know it better. Yeah, that's the not invented here syndrome. I mean, a relatively normal reflex. And in addition, we have that open source logic. You come from the computer science, so that's also an important logic, but not always for companies. So not by nature, to a certain extent, when they just want to sell something. So
Mhm.
what what is your approach to overcome this, let's say, this hindering for a successful technology transfer?
Okay, we must understand why do they feel that syndrome. Okay, and I believe that we can, in short, it is lack of control. Okay, and we can also check that when we approach a company with a new technology, so we are doing a technology push approach, they need to see the value, and automatically in their ads the decision makers are looking for the technology risk and the business risk, and to deal, and they are related also, so they are not completely independent, and we should sit on the same side of the table and try to solve this puzzle in their heads. Okay, so and additionally, the open source and digital
I mean,
asset. Yeah.
excuse me for disturbing you, but this,
Yeah.
I mean, that's normal for each and every corporation. Yeah, that because you have a third party, otherwise it's not a corporation. There is
Mhm.
somebody from outside of the company, and then you always have this issue of the danger or the threat of losing control. Yeah, I mean, that's that we call that trust. and that's the most important ingredient for successful corporations, is that we have two partners which have a certain level of trust for each other. And that's the, I mean, you are a kind of trust manager for them. When you solve this puzzle, you have to help them, that there is really a solution, but you have to take it serious, I guess. Yeah. So not swiping it away and say, come on, it's no problem. For them, it is one.
Yes, and there is a bias that is very, very present, at least in all my cases, that from the researcher side, the technologists, they think that technology will sell by itself, that is ready. The
Because
difference
it's so brilliant.
technology versus a product and a service, and that from the business side is totally wrong, and the rings and the bells start to ring. Okay, these guys don't know nothing about the commercial side, so the risk increase. So even for the communication should be very attentive, and the business side should feel that in this side there is someone that understands them, that would at least have a part of the mindset. Okay, I believe that for digital assets, there is an additional or a different scenario. Okay, the adoption barriers are lower. Okay, for many reasons that you understand, but there are also additional ones that are the speed. Everything evolves very quickly. The FTO, to ensure freedom to operate because from the university side, so academic software is as is. So, okay, we have an algorithm, we have a tool. Now is up to you to deal with that. So no liabilities. I can ensure that I'm infringing third-party software, and that
then you are not infringing.
That are not infringing. Yes, hopefully yes. Yeah, sorry. And then we are just talking about source code, but then comes with patents, trademarks, databases, and etc., because software has many digital layers where different IPRs are used to protect. Even the business models are not that straightforward, so very simplistic as we see in pharma. Okay, you have a new compound, a new application, patents, blah 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 blah. And there is many different possible business models, and that is a challenge, and to communicate them to SMEs is critical. How can we create a positive environment to foster this cooperation? Contract research, so to start a small project, to have two sides and start to have a prototype, a minimum viable product, a joint use case, to de-risking the technology, de-risking the commercial side of the project, try to improve the success rate that is still low, as you know by experience.
I mean, what David again comes up with. I mean, Magda says something that the situation in France is quite similar. I mean, that's I believe that. I would say this is true on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this comes by nature. Yeah. This uncertainty about the partners and these risks. By the way, last week we talked about FTO issues and risk topics. So I mean that's an upcoming issue, and the more we go into the direction of software solutions, the more we have to talk about the risk that the user of a software is infringing, and not the intended use, so to speak, is the infringing, and not the program itself. So that means we have to take care that the user has an FTO, and that's an additional issue, I would say, when you try to do that. With software, does it happen that you come up as a technology transfer officer for the SMEs, and that you come up with risks which the company has not seen? I mean, that would be a benefit for the company when you explain them where is the risk position here.
Yes, that is one of my unique selling proposition. Why to work with my Ineshk Tech and not working with other institutions around the world is because I can foresee, I can guide them throughout all these risks and strategies. And in this case, in particularly, an approach like a software as a service, where the software is running in a server, it can have a big impact and to completely change the game. So in a situation where the software is running in the mobile phone is one, and maybe infringing a third party. If we do the same thing, but in the server, in a black box, where the server, and now with 5G, we can do that very broad and got the same output, we can completely change. Okay, that is so dynamic, and you have so many libraries in one software, in one app, that it is crazy now. It is really crazy in open
Yeah,
source
yeah.
community.
So what comes up in the chat now is a discussion which refers to Mr. Chesbro, who, by the way, did not invent the open innovation, but he coined that with a quite famous book, which is well known. That he said these NIH syndrome does not apply anymore. Yeah, but he, as a professor, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But as a professor, it's relatively easy to say now we have a new paradigm and this is open innovation. But what is your experience with SME? Are they open for open innovation to this kind of thinking in terms of there is a market for inventions and maybe even for innovations, and so we can be a part of it. Is that a logic? I mean, it applies pretty much, and it is well adopted by the big companies. But what is your experience with the SMEs with this logic of open innovation?
I don't see that yet. Yes, I see a lot of open innovation in big companies. As you see, it's now very easy to go in the websites and they see, okay, we are interested in this application, in this market. Please send us solutions and we will then talk. But I see that SMEs, at least the ones with I talk with in Portugal, they are very closed. So secrecy, and that is present in everything. So to show them that IP foster collaboration, innovation around the globe, that can they do not, they need partners to grow and to sell their products in Asia, in US. It's just possible, and use the franchising examples because they understand that McDonald's and so on. But when it comes to open innovation, it is a very strange word, and also misconceptions. They think that is free of charge innovation, everything public, and okay, so we are at level 0 at least.
Yeah, I mean, so I can support that experience pretty much from my own experience, because when we ask the question how often an SME, I mean, it depends on what we call an SME, okay? But even here in Germany, we have the tendency, even companies with 1 billion revenue or more, they call themselves, so they were family owned and they call themselves an SME. So even when we talk about such companies, real innovation project, I'm not talking about the next product or improvement of an existing product. I'm talking about a real innovation, this is a rare case for these companies. So they are not Procter and Gamble, which has to deliver in a continuous stream innovations to the market. So for SMEs, this is a rare case, and it is time consuming, resource consuming, high risk. And so they are simply not, so innovation is not really a function for them, that they are used to it. And that is the logic from Chesbro. obviously, Henry Chesbrough assumed the bigger companies which have an ongoing innovation stream, this famous funnel, and they manage that funnel, and then they have a trade across the funnel borders. But this is simply, this model doesn't fit anyhow for SMEs.
Yes, we are talking about strategy, and I believe that the companies, the entities that are able to do innovation in a systematic way, have a process of innovate and not accidentally, they can manage and they can foresee the value of open innovation to combine with their classical, I would say, IP innovation. They will not put everything in open innovation, okay? They will just put some areas where they want to do the outsourcing of at least a part of the risk, okay? For SMEs, is really difficult to understand that, and I can see some connections with open source, because when we talk with big companies, in software companies, some part of their products are in open source, some are trade secrets, and how can then capture value, use this at least to antagonist strategies, but combine it together, they have a synergetic effect. And the value is to understand these borders and how to combine these two approaches together with many others, patents, trademarks, and that today build the IP strategy and value in software, it's really challenging.
Yeah, Gilberto comes up with a different perspective, which I think it's very interesting. He says, Naya, so he focused to Brazil, but I would say that's again a very general issue. He says, how can a university really understand business risks? And that we should be very careful to a certain extent. We have this unknown. I mean, innovation is, of course, a very risky business, and we should not, of course, we should not have the position to a business to explain the business, not as a university and not as a technology transfer institute. But I would say when you come from the technology, and especially when you understand the IP background, that helps, especially SMEs, pretty much, because that's also my experience. They have not really a good understanding for IP risks.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also understand the concerns of our colleague, because it is not in the mission of the university to have a commercial role in the market, and that is fine, and all companies understand that. But we are talking at least at a certain level. So just to bridge these two worlds, otherwise they are speaking completely different languages, and there is no connection. And companies when we talk about the triple helix concept, companies are a key player to have societal impact. Without companies, there are no products or services, so society do not benefit from the knowledge and from the investment that the public money do, in Europe at least, in universities. So show to taxpayers the value that is being created at our university.
Yeah, and that they can really benefit from it.
Yes.
Daniel, I would like to come back to the open source issue, because I'm doing a lot of trainings, especially also for SMEs. Tomorrow we will come up with a post of a new training initiative which we have at SAPI for European companies, and on how to use IP design to protect digital use cases and business models and like that. So, and in the trainings, I get again and again quite interesting questions, okay, or statements. And one statement which is really famous, is that, Alex, this is nice what you're telling us by how to patent a use case, how to patent a digital business model, but we make open source, and this has nothing to do with IP. I mean, you're laughing, but that is a fact. I get really daily. So, Daniel, so that I'm not saying that, please explain us what is the interrelation between open source and IP.
Yes, I understand that, and it is a myth that I face it every single day. It's part of the game. So I believe that it is important to explain what open source licensing is, and as the name says, it is a license. It is a contract, right? It is not. There is a misconception for some developers that is free of charge, easy to access, some libraries that I can use and prototype very easily and send to my client, and it is great. Okay, and I believe that yes, we have to understand that open source licensing was created to foster software adoption, dissemination, and this it is a community very open, and the spirit is very positive. Okay, saying that, we have to understand also that a contract has terms that we must fulfill, and understand that open source is not just one big thing. There are more than 50 different licenses. We can discuss that now. Okay, the most used one we can sum up for 10, but every single license has impacts that we have to understand before use it. But we are licensing what? Licensing copyrights. So there is IP there on the source code. Okay. Saying that, we can now move to the software patents or computer implemented inventions, where we are protecting the function. Okay. And as you know, patents are negative rights, so we can block others from using or exploiting our inventions that in this case are software. So we can think that in the software we can have the patents to protect the core, the function, and then we have copyrights to protect the implementation that goes from the source code until the byte code, and they belong to the same copyright. So the creative expression of a concept, an idea. Okay, so how can a patent and open source work together is the question. Okay, because when you disclose your source code, you have an open source license there, but then it comes the question, so how can I be sure that the others are fulfilling the terms, the contracts, how to detect infringement? Okay, and many times when we are talking about academic and R&D, so no big money involved, okay, we can then email and please mention us or so much, so the risk is low, but we have some case laws where there are some big damages just by infringing GPL3, for example, or PASHI 2 licenses. And one good way to have control is to have a patent combine it with open source. So I can patent a concept, an invention. I can disclose the source code, foster adoption. So people are contributing to my source code. And since the protection that the patent gives to the owner is broader, so I can have several different versions of the software if the function, if the problem and
the logic, the algorithm,
yeah, it is protected, and by protected doesn't mean that automatically others are blocked. No, it means that
I mean that is the point. Yeah. So what I'm always saying is a fence is a fence. Yeah. But when you can build a fence without any doors, or you put a door in it and you have the key, and all what you have to do is you have to say when you want to open it and when not. But yes, you have the control of it. Yeah.
Yes. This is because exactly the point. For open source, you have no limitations on the use. And many times researchers think, we ask them, what do you want to allow to do your source code? For universities is okay, but for companies it is not. And I want to put it in open source. Oh, you don't? Okay, it doesn't work like that. If in a very extreme case, if there is criminals using your source code, you can do nothing about that. But if you have a patent, you can do. Okay, and that explains why Linux has a lot of patents, and there was a big fight between Microsoft and Linux, and the open source community is very connected with now the OIN, so Open Innovation Network, that is a defensive patent pool where many companies, including the very big one, famous one that we know, are cross-licensing their patents to ensure open innovation or collaboration. So, okay, they have a gun, but they will not fire to you if you
Yeah,
don't.
and at least, and the other aspect is that at least you are sure that within the coverage of that pattern, you do not
Mhm.
infringe anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other aspect that I say. Okay, it's for sure. We know the ownership of it. Exactly. I mean, lots of things happens now on the blog and on our chat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. That's good. So we inspired with that kind of thinking. So obviously we are not alone with that experience. Um,
Okay, yes.
what Vasco Diaz says, and I like that pretty much. So thank you, Vasco, for that term. He says what I explained with that open source has nothing to do with IP. He said this is the public domain myth. I like that very much. So that's
Yes.
great. That's absolutely great. So Gilberto comes up at two aspects from Gilberto. So he's very active here. So I hope Gilberto, we meet later on also in the after show party on LinkedIn and can discuss that a little bit more. So he came up with two aspects. The first aspect is, and I have not seen it in that way, but I like this perspective. He says he had a 10-year in Silicon Valley, and in that time, a typical Silicon Valley company like Google started to build a lot of technology from outside.
Mm-hmm.
So they really, I mean, to a certain extent, they are famous. So I call it these companies, yeah, these typical Silicon Valley companies, but you can integrate also Microsoft or others, these big techs. They are famous for buying technology. They are famous for buying companies, buying innovations, and making something for themselves out of that. I mean, at the end, this not invented here is definitely not in the DNA of such big tech companies. And I mean, that is something I've never realized that this is a wonderful example. So in terms of when you want to become successful, open your innovation funnel, open your borders. You cannot invent everything,
Mm-hmm.
especially not when you. So when Procter and Gamble says they cannot invent everything what they need, why should you think as an SME you can do it?
Yes, I totally agree, because if you think about the DNA and all the agile and speed is everything.
Yeah.
So, and I feel that when we approach for a commercial licenses for open source that we release somewhere, companies, the rationale for the pricing is how much I should invest in my engineers team to do the same. Okay, I can offer you X. And
Exactly.
so speed and resources investment is everything here. Yeah.
Yeah, and you reduce in addition at least, yeah, the negative know-how. So what can go wrong? You can avoid all of that, and you can
Mhm.
just rely on the technology which is given, and that means you and that means that you avoid all of that, yeah, misleading paths.
Yes.
Okay, so unfortunately, Daniel, uh,
Oh,
uh, it is too less time, like always. So I want to say thank you to our guests, Magda Voltolini from Lensify, David Hurtado from Lensify Arte, and to Gilberto Professor Ribeiro. So, by the way, I'm for everybody Alex, and so I'm happy when I can say Gilberto to Brazil. So, thank you very much to Portugal. Thank you, Daniel, that you were with us here. And again, I say that nearly to everybody. I am absolutely sure this was not our last meeting.
yeah,
Um,
it was
we have
great.
to invite you again.
Okay, for sure. It's my pleasure.
Great. Thank you very much to everybody. Have a nice evening. And for the ones who have something open, I would say I come up during the next day with an IP nugget to explain a little bit what is the difference of the value in use and the transfer value when we want to transfer something like a technology from a university to an SME, and how to determine prices for that. I will come up with a short IP management nugget about that. Thank you very much, Daniel. Goodbye to everybody. Good night.
It was
And
fun. Bye bye.
see you soon all. Bye.